Okay, let's talk about the Cleveland Browns, who there's no getting around it, are just in a horrible position right now. They went all in on the Deshaun Watson contract and it completely blew up in their face, and now they have to try and figure out what to do about this. So, where did the Cleveland Browns go from here? Well, again, part of it is they have the number 2 overall pick. You got to use that in a way that can help you, and we'll maybe talk at the end of this video about how they could use that. But first, let's talk about free agency and cap space, stuff like that. If you look at their cap situation, they are currently at negative $31 million for 2025 and only $1 million in cap space for the following year in 2026. They have nearly done the impossible of, they're picking second overall, and while doing that, still have the second worst cap situation in the league. Maybe one day we'll get a team that can pick first overall and have the worst cap situation in the league. The Browns did what they could, but are still, second in both of those categories. The Saints are the team that has a worse cap situation this year. Although in 2026, the Browns beat out the Saints, and they have the worst cap situation as of right now. They're not really something you're shooting for. But essentially, this is what you have to do if you're a Browns fan, is just say, we're going to suck for 2 years. Like, it is what it is. And sometimes things can work out, right? You have the Bo Nix Denver Broncos, despite getting out of the Russell Wilson contract, he's still able to have success. So, and they're able to make the playoffs. Things can be done, right? You shouldn't just give up on these 2 years, but you should have the mindset of, okay, we're not really going to seriously compete until 2027. Maybe we can be competitive to some degree and be a playoff caliber team the next 2 years, but if we're trying to think about going on a deep playoff run, that's just kind of out of the question for the next 2 years. It's how you should be thinking, at least. A couple of free agents to talk about. So you have Jedrick Wills Jr., who's, this is the projection next to them. I guess he's only projected to get $3 million. That feels like we're keeping him on, right? If that's all it's going to be. Jameis Winston for $6 million, and also Nick Chubb, who, he's had back-to-back years of bad injuries. But, I almost wonder if teams could see him as a potential Saquon Barkley guy of injury history, but really good player. If you can get a healthy season out of him, try it. I think I re-sign Nick Chubb, especially if it's only $3 million. And then if he has a great start to the year, you could consider trading him to a contender, right? Get a valuable draft pick there. So, I don't know. Nothing's going to move the needle one way or the other here. But let's go over here. This is their PFF grades for specific positional categories, and you see it's really good in 2 of them, and those are the ones that Myles Garrett impacts, and then really bad in every other situation. So the passing was 29th last year, according to PFF. It was 31st receiving, 27th pass blocking, 30th run blocking, 20th rushing, and then the run defense run defense and pass rush were both top 3. Coverage was 29th, so that's, you need to be able to get that better as well. The reality is they need a lot, and I'm just going to be honest, I'm trading Myles Garrett if I'm the Browns. I just am. I mean, you look at this situation, what does being first in run defense and third in pass rush get you if you struggle everywhere else? It gets you the second overall pick. You need to be better. Really, I almost view pass rush as almost the final piece of the puzzle as opposed to the first piece of the puzzle because, sometimes it can work. It's a piece of the puzzle. It's an important aspect to have, but I just feel like for someone like Myles Garrett, okay, how many great years are you going to get out of him? You expect at least like 3 or 4 more great years, but you're essentially wasting 2 of those years because you're not going to be a real contender right away, right? At least that's how I would think. And if that's the case, you saw what the Lions did with trading away Matthew Stafford, getting draft capital. You'll be bad longer, right? But you already have some good draft capital. Start to build it up more and more, and that's how you can fully, rebuild. I think that's probably what you have to do at this point, especially if you can get people are talking about 2 first-round picks. To me, I say absolutely do that. You can clear up some cap space as well. Myles Garrett's under contract for the next 2 years. If you decide to make him a hostage, he's probably going to walk after 2 years anyway, so strike when the iron is hot. That's how I view that. As for the draft capital, so this is currently the picks they have. They have 1 first, 1 second, 2 thirds, 1 fourth, 1 fifth, and then 3 sixths, no 7th round pick. So they have a lot of draft picks as well. And of course, they are picking second in each of these rounds, with the exception of, I think there's a couple that they moved around in, but they're going to be picking second overall. And I think the last question is, do you consider quarterback versus non-quarterback here? I think the question a lot of people would have is, do you if you like a quarterback, which I've only done my evaluation of Cam Ward, I like Cam Ward a lot. I would draft him second overall if he was available. He's the only guy I've evaluated so far out of the quarterback. So I don't know about Shedeur Sanders. I just don't know. But the question people have is, well, is it worth it to throw him into an awful situation? Remember, 31st ranked receiving core and then 27th pass blocking. And part of that is the pass blocking was banged up. You expect them to get healthier. And they had every position gets injured at some point, right? But still, is it worth just throwing a young quarterback into a bad situation? Well, if you really like a guy, you don't know how often you're going to be picking here. It's not the worst idea in the world. Again, you see what Denver did. They were in a bad situation, but they got a quarterback they liked and were able to build up this situation through other draft picks and through kind of smaller moves in free agency. You can do that. Again, they don't have a ton of money to do it through free agency, but they could at the very least do the smaller moves through the draft, and if they get extra draft capital with Myles Garrett, that can be something you can do. That being said, unless they love a new quarterback, personally for me, I wouldn't go out and draft a quarterback second overall. I would punt on this year a little bit, try to build some capital around, try to build some talent around the quarterback position, get a bridge guy, maybe just bring Jameis Winston back and say, let's have fun for a year. We'll probably stink again, and then we can get another good draft pick, something like that. And then I would trade Myles Garrett away, fully do a rebuild. Might not be the most exciting thing to do, but you know what? I mean, at the end of the day, it's still, you're moving in the right direction. Again, the main thing that the Browns can do right now is just have time pass. They have 2 more years of the Deshaun Watson contract. That's kind of what they need right now, is passage of time. And the good news is that's going to happen, whether you want it or not to happen. They can't screw that up. Time will still pass, I hope. It'd be a bummer if the Browns somehow found a way to stop time. But that's kind of just where they're at right now. I mean, the other options, I guess you could try and keep Myles Garrett and say, well, let's just hope. I mean, who knows? Maybe they still believe Deshaun Watson could be a player that could be valuable. Let's not forget, he was still going to be the starter. Like, he didn't lose the starting job until he got injured. I can't imagine that's the case, though. But maybe they decide to keep Myles Garrett and say, you know what? Let's just try and still be as competitive as possible. Let's not go quarterback. Let's try and see if we can make things still work. Because they did make the playoffs 2 years ago. I think that would be a mistake, though. Given how bad things went last year, I just think that would be a mistake. I think you got to just tear it down, rebuild. We've seen teams have success doing that kind of thing. But that's how I view all of this. And bring Joe Flacco back. He was fun. But that's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.